Hello, welcome to live stream. Nice to see you, nice. So if this is your first time on live stream, then I'm going to tell you how it works. And if you're watching on YouTube afterwards, then I can also tell you how to come on live to my streams. So I do these talks currently every Sunday at 6 p.m. French time. Always check my website first, because there's times when I can't make the stream and I put the date on my website under live stream. Yeah, I do it 6 p.m. French time. And I always say French time because I can't say CET, because we changed to CSET in the summertime. So you just have to go by 6 p.m. French time. And also be conscious that when we do that changeover, which is not for another couple of months, but we all change in the year at different times. Sometimes it can be up to a month. So just be conscious of that when the time gets nearer. I never remember to say that. Yes, I do these talks at 6 p.m. If you want to know how to see it live, you can go to my website, and under live stream you can watch it in my website, or you can go to my YouTube channel on YouTube. And it should be there live. Or you can go to my Facebook page, and then I also post it most of the time on my Facebook page as well. So yes, that is what you do. If you want to ask me questions, then you do so through Skype. My Skype address is Cairns12, and you can find all of that in the information below. If you want to call in, then please say call me, and don't put anything underneath that so I can see it, because calls normally get preference. Calls normally get preference. So you just put call me and nothing else so I can see it in the chat. If you want to call in live, then please make sure you've got a headset with a microphone and good internet connection. Otherwise there's feedback and it's a bit uncomfortable for the listener. You can also, as well, if you like, check. If you've never used Skype before, you can do a test call by going up to Skype, going to preferences, or not going to preferences, the one below, audio and video settings, and then there's a test call that you can do to make sure your Skype works. But if it doesn't, and we're live and there's problems, then no worries. That happens. I often have technical issues as well. The order in which I do things is I normally go live on YouTube about 10 past 6. So for the first 10 minutes, I just have an introductory music and screen while people join. So about 10 past 6. Then I do a bit of an introduction, and then we do meditating till about 6:20 to 7. Then I do an introduction till about 7, and then for the last hour, question and answers. So that's the service. The service of events. I don't think you can say that. Sometimes I think if I stopped speaking for 1 year, I'd completely forget how to speak. My brain is a very funny instrument. It forgets things like that. Yes. What else? I don't think I can think of anything else today to say. At the moment, I don't have any current events that I'm planning. I have thought about doing a retreat in September, but that's still to be announced. We just see what happens with this current situation in the world. I do sessions, but the sessions are booked out normally a couple of months in advance. So you can write to me and be put on the waiting list. If you want to sponsor sessions, So sponsor other people having sessions, then write to me. And if you want to be sponsored, then you can write to me to have sessions, but you have to pay something towards the session. And also, people have to appreciate that it's not me paying, somebody else is paying for you. It's not that I'm giving a free session. It's that somebody else is written in, so somebody else is paying for the session for you. I just say that because I think it's different in people's minds. If they think that I'm giving it for free, then it's not such a big deal. But if they realize that somebody else is paying, then it's more important to them. Not, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's always complications. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but it's always complicated when you give things for free, because it's not like the East where people understand the concept of donation. We don't really understand the concept of donation in our society. Like when something is free, when something's by donation, then people think that's free, and it's regarded as less important. I know that's weird. It's our mentality. Like even in the psychology of selling things, I think, that sometimes things having a higher price, it makes people think, oh, this is more special. Like we have weird relationships around money. And I've noticed that sometimes giving things for free sets people into a weird mentality, and then they begin to expect it. So I really appreciate that everybody has different income, and I think that it's brilliant for people to sponsor sessions or for me to even give discounts, and I think that's really beautiful. But it's also trying to create the right mentality of it as well. It's complex. So that's that. 2 sessions. Oh yeah, and if you want to see videos, edited videos of these talks, and you don't want to listen to me blabbering on like I am now doing the turkey, then you can go to another channel, which is Lisa Cairns video clips, and all of the clips are edited and put up onto YouTube. It's not done by me, somebody else does it entirely. Yes. And okay, I think that is everything. So we shall begin the meditation. So I just give you a little bit of an introduction to meditation. So the most important part, I think, is the idea that firstly, you believe that you're doing meditation. That is an illusory idea. So when I say we're going to do meditation, you instantly think, oh, I can participate in this and do really well or do really badly, or I like meditation or I don't like meditation. And the assumption is that there's somebody in there choosing to do it. And first of all, that is not true. Meditation either happens or doesn't happen, but it doesn't belong to anyone. So there is the impulse to do it or not. So it sounds like I'm giving prescription, but really what's happening is description is happening of something that can happen or might not happen. Am I making sense tonight? So that's that. Yeah, so that's the first one. And then the second one is the idea that meditation will lead you to enlightenment. That's a very exciting idea. And I can see how, that's tempting to get on the bandwagon and be like, here I come, meditation. And that's how we kind of are set up as humans. We're like these human doers, always doing something to get somewhere. But who is this one that's going to get somewhere? And then also, if you have this idea that enlightenment leads you to that meditation leads you to enlightenment, oh my goodness, I can go back to front today, then it puts so much pressure onto the meditation. It's like the same as believing that your lover is going to bring you happiness, or your new house is going to bring you happiness, or whatever, like going on this retreat is going to bring you freedom. It like puts so much pressure on the action event that you don't really enjoy the event. Like I sometimes feel sorry for people, then they come on my retreat and I can see this big expectation of either becoming my friend or becoming enlightened. And yeah, I can see the suffering that that creates. Like it's this eagerness to get something. It also creates a lot of excitement because it's like, yeah, we're going to do it. And humans love this mentality of we're going to do it, we're going to conquer all and make it. But it also stops you really appreciating what's happening. There's no better place to get to than this. There is no hurry for anything. This is the magic and the joy that you look for. Okay. So there's 3 different meditation exercises that I recommend, but whatever you feel comfortable with. If it's none of these 3, then it doesn't matter. I don't really see one as better than the other. It's all dependent on your setup and the feeling and the energy. So the first one is the mindfulness of breathing. And basically all you have to do for that is count every time you breathe in. And you count all the way up to number 10. And when you get to number 10, you start again. And that's it. It's that simple. And there's no judgment on it. If you end up at 946, then that's perfect. That every time you bring yourself back to 0, it's a celebration. Like, don't use this as something to beat yourself up. It's just an exercise to practice concentration. The next one is moving your attention to I am or consciousness. So every time you notice your mind wandering, putting the person attention in this moment, in the consciousness and I am. Or so bringing your attention back to this moment, what's actually happening. And then the third one is just sitting there and just letting your mind do whatever it does. So if your mind wanders, I don't mean going on the computer and like searching the internet. I just mean sitting there and just letting it think and have a field day in whatever it wants to have a field day about. That is my recommendation. And we do this because it's what's happening, because the momentum in my body has come to share to do this, and I love to sit in silence before I talk. And number 2, we do it to settle down the person. So the person is like a wild storm, which can be miraculously beautiful, but can get out of control. And it's just about settling it down. So we settle it down, and then we can speak about non-duality. If you're in deep suffering or deep pain, then how possibly could we talk about the beauty of this moment? You're like, yeah, get lost, Lisa. Go get lost. Go jump off a bridge. Talking about how beautiful this moment is. Do you not realise it is not beautiful? So we just settle stuff down. Okay, so we shall begin. Okay, so now we shall begin. Let me just look at the title again. That which is can never cease to be. That which is not will not exist. So it was sent a bit of the Bhagavad Gita, a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, and I just thought I could read it out and then talk about that to see what comes. So I think this was from Bhagavad Gita Veda base. That which is never ceases to be. That which is not will not exist. To see this truth of both is theirs who part essence from accident, substance from shadow, indestructible. Learn thou. The life is spreading life through all. It cannot anywhere, by any means, be any wise diminished, stayed, or changed. Okay, let me go again for that. Reading round 2. Reading round 2. Okay. That which is can never cease to be. That which is not will not exist. To see this truth of both is theirs who part essence from accidents, substance from shadow, indestructible. Learn thou. The life is spreading life through all. It cannot anywhere, by any means, be any wise diminished, stayed, or changed. Wow, that's quite a paragraph. So I like the first sentence. That which is can never cease to be. That which is not will not exist. I mean, it's kind of simple as well. It kind of reminds me of my friend from university. We used to, in the beginning, she was really into spirituality as well. We used to like study these types of texts, and she would always be like, "This is so obvious." Like, well, that which doesn't exist will never be, and that which exists can never cease to exist. That's, I mean, I suppose that's the profound bit. But the second bit, that which is not will not exist. Yeah, that's obvious. But as opposed to the Western mind, people often think that like when somebody's born, they come out of something beyond life. Whereas I suppose what they're trying to say here is that which doesn't exist can never exist. So it's not, like you can't like go outside of this life and then grab a baby soul and then bring it into life. Like it all comes from this one thing called life. So that which doesn't exist, that which is not will not exist. But it also means that bigger part of you. So that's my inspiration. And now I shall do a springboard like a trampolinist into non-duality. Maybe, yeah. So maybe today we start at the very beginning. Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. Okay. So in the beginning, there was nothing. And then God said, let there be light. And then we could see things. So in the beginning, you're born. And when you're a baby coming out of the womb, you do not know that you're a baby. You don't come into this life like shoot out of the lady's parts and then suddenly go, oh, my name is Harry. Hello, world. You come into this life and you have no sense that you're a baby. And you can't really remember things. Your memory is still being formed. So you can't really remember that you're in the mother's tummy. The body has some memories of being born, most probably, but you can't really remember that. You just are, and you have nothing that you can identify. You're not like, oh, that is my hand. Hello, hand. Because you don't know that's your hand. You haven't got complex thinking. So there's no identification that happens. So the body doesn't have an energetic center. So what it feels like, even though you can't remember, it feels like you are everywhere. Your essence is everywhere. And what I mean by essence is the consciousness and that sense of being. So they're not, the I am is not located inside the heart, or the consciousness isn't located behind the head. It's everywhere. Like, so when you're looking at the ceiling, there isn't a place where you stop and the world begins. Like, it's one movement. When you look at your hand, it's not like something that's separate from you. It's appearing as you, in you. Although when I say in you, it's just laziness with the words, and also for me to communicate it in a bit more simpler way, because there's no in or out of you. Like, you don't find an outside of you, but saying in makes it simpler to say. Really, it's like as you. And then the question is what is that you? That you is not a thing. It's not an object. It's not an emotion. It's not a feeling. It's not the body. It's not your genetics. It's not your karma. It's not what you've done. It's not what you're going to do. It's not your job, even though as a baby you don't really have a job, just except to be a baby. So you're like, I'm going to work with my little briefcase, being a baby. It's not really like that, obviously. So there is nothing which you are. Nothing. Nothing, 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 nothing. Anything that you think you could be is an experience and something that comes and goes. So what's being pointed to is that which is eternal and always here, which is this sense of consciousness and beingness that never, ever, ever leaves. And this consciousness is non-existent and existence simultaneously. It's absolutely nothing. Like, not a nothing you can see, like a nothing in deep sleep that you don't even know, you can't even see it. And all of this world is appearing out of that no thing. Like, everything comes from it. It's not even appearing out of it, it is it. So when you look at your computer now, or you look at the wall, you imagine that that wall and that computer appears because of time, but that's your imagination. In this very moment, it appears out of no thing, and that no thing isn't a place you can find. Like, you can't find deep sleep. It just is. It's there at the source of everything, and that no thing is infinite. It's beyond anything that can be contained. Even the idea of infinite, it's beyond. It's no size, no place, no thing, no thing. You could also call it God, magic, and it's not the source of everything. It is everything. So everything is that no thing, and no thing is that everything. Some people call it the source, which is just language. It's pedantics, no. Phonetics? No, I forgot. My God, language sometimes is such a struggle for me. My mind forgets it so quickly. Yeah. So right now, you think you're listening to me and that I'm speaking, but that's just the story in time. So apparently it's coming through the Lisa body and it comes out with the Lisa flavor. Like for lots of people that have listened for many years, you're like, oh yeah, heard this before. And maybe I say it slightly differently because I'm kind of like that. I'm always changing. But in the moment, it's coming from nothing. So that's the true experience. That's the absolute experience. That's the unquestionable experience. And then you've got this questionable experience of memory, which is saying, okay, Lisa comes from time and Lisa's going into the future. And that's your imagination. You never experience that. You never experience going into the future. You never experience coming from the past, and you never experience your objects coming from the past. You experience a memory which is informing you that they come from the past. And what happens in the human world is they identify with this. They get really involved with this story of time. And then they begin to believe that they are an object that goes into time. So as the baby, they don't. The baby is just like pure awakeness. And that awakeness exists and doesn't exist. It's the nothingness and everything. So nothingness and everything. It's conscious of itself, but that consciousness is not located. The consciousness is the things. And the same with the I am, the sense of beingness. And I always split them up, but the I am and the consciousness are one and the same thing. It's this aliveness, this knowing of oneself. And that never leaves. That's your birthright. That was there prior to birth. It's just there might have been nothing appearing, so it wasn't recognized. But it's still there. And it's what's there after death as well. And it's freedom. It's absolute love. Absolute love. So if we go back to being the baby again, that you're born into this world absolutely free. You leave this world absolutely free, and you live your life absolutely free with the illusion that there is somebody suffering in your life. Now let's get on to what suffering is and what identification is. So somewhere at the age of 2 or 3 years old, an energetic contraction arises in the body, and I suspect this is genetic, as well as conditioned. So your parents are like, you, who's a good baby? Who's a good baby? Eat the dinner. Yes, Derek is a good baby. Who's a good boy? Yes, he's a good boy. He's a good boy. Don't be a bad boy. Good boy, good boy, good boy, good boy. That's what we do to the babies. And so it's mostly, I would say, a genetic phenomena that arises. And I suspect that identification and separation happened when language formed. If you look at Christianity and the story of Adam and Eve, like so Eve ate the apple of knowledge and became aware of her nakedness and got chucked out of the Garden of Eden. So I suspect that it was the intellect which brought about separation. And I suspect that's what they're talking about in the Bible, although I don't really know. I haven't really studied the Bible very much, even though I'm brought up in a Christian society. At about 2 or 3 years old, identification happens, and it's most probably really sudden, and it's an energetic contraction in the body. And I suppose what's happening in the body is the body is contracting through the cells some way. And that contraction, this energetic contraction, makes it feel that that's who you are. So it makes it feel like who you are is inside this body. So before, consciousness was everywhere and consciousness was free and your sense of being was free. And it's still free after that, but that contraction makes your body feel like you exist inside the body. Pardon me. And from that, seeking arises. So the moment, because that contraction is attention. You could say it is seeking maybe, or attention, but or a lie. It's not true. There's something wrong with that. So as soon as that happens, seeking arises in the person, because there's always going to be, well, that exists inside the body, something not quite right. This moment is not quite right. There's something slightly off in this moment. And then the human goes on this elaborate journey into time to try and find a solution for not feeling quite right. And that is very colourful, dramatic and adventurous, but it inevitably leads to suffering the more and more it's played. So in the beginning, when it first happens to the child, it's like maybe like just getting a tiny little stone in your shoe. By the time you're like in your 50s, if you've never explored this subject, then it's like having a big, massive boulder in both shoes, because the seeking energy has grown and it's like unleashed this craziness of thinking and this craziness of mind. And then that has unbalanced your chakras and your emotional center. And then that in turn has made the mind and thinking worse. So when you are 3 years old, it doesn't feel that bad. It's just a tiny feeling of feeling out of place. And I'm sure it's traumatic for everyone for that to happen, but it's very small, that seed in the beginning. And this isn't about behavior, because prior to the baby, the 2 or 3 year old baby identifying, the baby cried from pain and the baby giggled with joy. So what people project onto me when I'm saying this is they think that what I'm saying is this is the end of pain and this is becoming karmically an amazing, lightened being. But it's really not that. The baby will have particular behaviors. I'm sure if you've had kids, you'll see this, that they come out of the womb with like very strong personalities, and then they kind of like grow into that and it becomes more obvious. So if you've got like you can have like a really stubborn child from day one and they're like very stubborn and maybe very determined, and then you can have like a really placid and laid back child. And this is karma and this is magic. It's the combination of the genes, and then it's karma from previous lives, which is kind of genetics. And it's not that. Behavior isn't it. Behavior is something that happens in the human body and it's a reaction of the body. So it's not about feelings and emotions and always having positive emotions. I know a lot of people say that, and you know, maybe they're more advanced or maybe they're not, maybe they're less advanced, I don't know really. But my experience is that it's not. No, not my experience. My knowing, like from everything that's happened to me, I know it's not about behavior. But I can't explain why a lot of sutras and teachers talk about behavior. Like, I think that it has an effect on behavior, but it's really not about behavior. I think that there is a stage that the person has to go through when they've really identified, and there are a lot of mental suffering, we have to settle that down. But then it's not about behavior, because the baby knows how it can have tantrums for hours. It can have attachment disorders. It can have all types of problems, prior to the age of 2. But then this identification happens, which is an energetic thing. And then the seeking begins. And this seeking tries to form a character, a steady, solid character in which you are, and then it tries to fulfill that character. So all of us have characters, but the seeking energy tries to own that character. So I've got a particular character, just like everybody else has, but it changes, and it's not solid. It can always change, and it can always evolve dependent on the energies, dependent on who I'm interacting with. It's not a solid thing. But the separate person tries to make themselves solid. And this is kind of encouraged in society. You have to be one way. And I can understand why it's encouraged in society, because it makes people feel safe. So if they know who they're always relating to, it makes them feel safe. If any of you have had friends with multiple personality disorder or certain mental health issues, and you've seen people change characters rapidly in front of you, it's a little bit scary. So I can see why a stable society would want the people to maintain a solid sense of self, because it makes society easier to manage and relationships easier to manage. It's a lot harder to manage relationships when your character's changing a lot. So Khaleesi has a particular personality, but she doesn't care at all. There's nothing in there that wants to be a good dog. Like, she does want to be a good dog, like, because she wants to please me and get the chicken, but she doesn't care. Like, there's nothing in there that's identifying with it. She's not like blowing her little doggy whistle to all her friends and being like, hey, look at me, other dogs. Look how good I'm being. She just doesn't care. She's not like, there's not something inside her that's trying to make a personality, a strong personality. And sometimes this, like in our society, if you look at psychology, that this can be promoted as healthy. And I can understand that as well, because you can do better in this life if you know what you want and what you don't want, and you can create firmer relationships. But that's not what we're talking about. Put that aside, and that's something else. What this is this energy that's a seeking energy that's claiming to be something, and then on top of that, it's then trying to fulfill that illusory something that's claiming to be. So it creates this person, like, I am this person, I am a lawyer, I am a doctor, I am a dog walker, I am an eco-warrior. So it claims this personality, and then it tries to fulfill it. And I really forget these games. I have to remind myself. Like, it tries to fulfill being that. So if it's an eco-warrior, then it will want to have a Facebook page maybe, or an Instagram page, where it's like throwing out lots of pictures of being an eco-warrior. Or maybe it's always trying to do that or talk about it. If you're wanting to be a great mother, then maybe you're always showing people like all the great things that you do with your kids. If you want to be a a great animal lover, then maybe you're volunteering at lots of charities. But it's all kind of about growing yourself. It's not really in flow, like you're semi doing it from the heart. There's some part of you that I'm sure resonates with it, but then there's this other layer of adding it on. Like when I was younger, I remember distinctly that part of traveling, I did a lot of traveling when I was younger, was about the way it looked to other people, the way it made me appear. I really forget that. And part of being spiritual, I remember like becoming Buddhist, and then suddenly I wanted to wear lots of Buddhist looking clothes so people would know I was Buddhist. Like there's this other part of us that's like wants to be something, and that's different from like enjoying dressing up. It's like this energy of trying to be something, and even if you're not conscious of it, then there might be a strong unconscious of it running. So you might noticing it in like your partnership, like you really want your partner to see you as good, and so you're always behaving in a good way. It doesn't mean that you haven't got like a natural energy to want to do that, and underneath that there's an energy to do that. It's like this other energy that's like claiming for itself and building itself up. Like you could say the seeker is like this greed monster, like it's always blowing itself up to be something because it's terrified of not existing. It's terrified of death, because that's what it is to really explore this, like really explore this illusion of who you think you are. What is that? And in the end, it's death. Because if you dismantle everything that you believe you are, then it's like the big void that people are afraid of. Like right now, who are you? Who are you without all these labels and all these divisions with people? Like to sit with someone and be nothing is so super vulnerable. Like I used to feel like I couldn't look people properly in the eyes because of it. Because it's like making love to someone. Like they are yourself. And I was like, oh God, this is inappropriate if they knew. Like not literally like doing the business, cementing the deal, but energetically, because yeah, it's like making love. Everything is yourself. Because the momentum of making love, what can make making love really beautiful and tantric, is melting into each other energetically. So there's no longer division. And that's what makes making love really orgasmic, is when that happens. But it can also happen when there's no sexuality, that you are just sitting with someone and there's no boundary between you and them. And it's so vulnerable and loving and beautiful. Yeah. Sometimes I remember when it first started happening, I felt like, oh God, I can't look at people. Like this is so invasive. If they knew that I was making love with them energetically, and then like like a dog would look at me and I'd be like, oh God. Or yeah. But it wasn't just people or animals, or it was also the wall. It was everything. But it just felt so different from what I'd been used to. But it requires like no boundary as to what you are, like no defense. It doesn't mean you don't defend, like if someone walks up to you and they spill a coffee over you, you don't defend and be like, what did you just do? Like you have to go and clean my clothes. It doesn't mean that. It's energetical. It's beyond words. And I'm still learning to deal to that, how to live that as a human. But that's what the awakening is, and it's so terrifying to that identity that wants to be something. Okay, so let's go back to to becoming identified. So when the child becomes identified at, say, 2 or 3 years old, the seeking begins, this tightness in the body begins, and then it feels like you are something solid looking out from the body, and then this doesn't feel quite right, so then you seek. So what the child does is it looks to its environment, to its family, to its schooling, and it listens to all the information that it's been told, and it's been told a lot that money is happiness, having a family maybe is happiness, having a good job is happiness, and then it begins to believe this momentum as well. So not only does it build up its ego, its sense of self, it then begins to believe that all these things that I acquire are going to give me happiness. And what it's actually looking for is the emptiness, is the melting away, is non-existence, which is existence. But what it's told is that the happiness is in the future. So then what it does is it looks for that freedom in time. So it looks for it in emotions. And the emotions, most people think my emotions are dependent on what's happening around me. So then it looks to things that it can obtain, like cars or houses or people or friends. So, and the friends also depend on emotions. So our emotions are part of this. Sometimes we either cut off with emotions or we become very lost in emotions and get overly involved in them. So some people get really cut off and they can't feel below their head. They're just a walking head and two eyes. The body's like non-existent. And then you've also got the other people that are like too emotional and always looking to try to find emotional stability outside, and then they can't. So then there's lots of blame and anger and emotions. So you've got these two different dynamics that can arise, and there's many more as well. I'm just summarizing. And this is the lie. And what seems to happen in this subject is there seems to be a settling of that person. So the seeking is reduced. The person does activities to reduce its seeking. So it does meditation, it does yoga, it does breathing exercises, it does therapy to reduce its seeking, and it does things in its life to reduce maybe stress or discomfort in its life. It becomes more simple maybe. And then as it becomes more simple and more reduced, then there seems to be the possibility for non-duality to be heard beyond the person. When the person is too noisy, it seems impossible for that to be heard. I don't know why that is, it just is the way it is. And what I mean by heard is that you hear non-duality being spoken, or you see something incredibly beautiful and that barrier melts away, and then there's something else that's known, and that's called awakening. And that is, in the end, God's will. That's grace. Everything is grace. So even you reducing your seeking is grace, but in that it appears like there's somebody that's doing it. So it appears like there's somebody that's showing up to meditate, but there is absolutely nothing that the person can do to switch on the button of not existing, because the person is a thing, so it can't become an unthing. That person can't become enlightened. That person can't get non-duality. But the person can seemingly put in information about meditation, put in information about therapy, and the body-mind begins to change. And that process makes it more receptive, more than likely, to non-duality, although I can't guarantee it. This is just from my observation and what seemingly happened here. But you can't press non-existence on. That happens. There seems to be a surrender that happens, and that sometimes can be through events externally. Or we don't know why it is, but there's some form of surrender and collapse that happens. And that is grace. So Mojo. So now we go to questions. Now I've had my good old rant. It's not called a rant. When an English person has a long talk, it's called a good old turkey. The English person has had a good old turkey. Because you might not realize this if you're not English, but if you're English, you will appreciate this, is that English people sound like turkeys. The Dutch sound like ducks. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this type of stuff. Maybe I think you're only allowed to joke about your own race. The Americans sound like canaries. They're all, in the mouth, up here. I think this has really got to be edited afterwards. I think that you're only allowed to speak about your own race. I'm actually Scottish. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this. The Scottish are, totally different. They sound like the bagpipes. But yes. So as an English person, I'm allowed to say, I'm not allowed to say about other places. The English person are doing the turkey. So when I do a rant, I'm doing the turkey. Now I've finished doing the turkey, I open it up to questions from other people. If you have any questions, I will take preference to telephone calls. So if you want to do that, call me, and then I can see it in the the chat. So don't put anything after call me, just that sentence, call me. And then I will call you when I'm ready. Thank you, Vel. I'm sorry, Dutch people, if you didn't realise that you sound like ducks. It's better than a turkey. Ducks are very elegant animals. Turkeys are, you know. Hi, Thomas. Yazzie. Hey, Yazzie. Hi, Lisa. Just wanted to say thank you for your talks. They really resonate. I find your expression very clear. Thanks. Cheers. Yasmin. Oh, thanks, Yasmin. With pleasure. Hey, Dennis from Kentucky. You see, it's worked. That's the way my brain works, is repetition. Hey, Dennis from Kentucky. You said you don't have any retreats scheduled, so how about considering a virtual retreat for Lisa Live followers? Maybe you have a follower or a friend who could help set it up for you. Certainly a fee would be charged for participants. Your friend in Kentucky. Hey, Dennis. You know, I have thought about doing that. Do you know why I don't do it? This is something that maybe our governments have to address at some point, is I can't be bothered to do the paperwork. It takes a lot of paperwork, anything that you do. Like not just setting it up on my website, that does take a lot of paperwork, but I mean like the taxing paperwork, like all the invoices I have to write, and yeah, that's really lame ass. But it really is a consideration for me because I'm not a fan of doing these types of things. Yeah, so I have considered it. So yeah, and then I thought maybe I'd do it for free just so I don't have to do the paperwork. Yeah, but it's in my mind for some reason to do it. Like there's something that I would enjoy to do, and I would like to. I thought about it. I'd like to do like a 4-week retreat, so do it once a week for 4 weeks, and I would like to do like a very particular like set out. So we did chakras the first week, so the body, mind, and chakras. Then we did consciousness. Then we did the I am, and then the end is all of that together. Like so. I did think about that. I would like to do that with a small group that can all be interactive. But paperwork, my nemesis. Hey, Carmela. Oh, that's such a beautiful picture. Wow, look at the colours. Is that from your garden? That's miraculous. Hi, Palveen. Semantics. Oh, yeah. The word, Derek, the word that escaped you for a moment was semantics. Yeah. Phonetics, I was trying to say. Semantics. Thanks. Hi, Palvi. Hi, Pavel. Where is your question? It's disappearing in Skype at the moment. You can see there's a question there. Maybe if I give you a thumbs up, it comes. Yeah, there is. Have you a trick to keep up with work that is more or less mentally, and to pay attention to consciousness and to not get stiff with mental activity? Thank you, Pavel. Paul. Oh, you pronounce it Paul? Or you pronounce it Pavel? Pavel. Work. Well, that's so funny because I was just saying about not wanting to do the tricks. I didn't want to do extra paperwork. Your trick. Well, I mean, my trick is to earn less money, basically, and to do less of that type of stuff. Like what I notice about my peers and my friends is that people take on way too much stuff. Like way too much stuff, and end up getting stressed. And my answer to it is that the most important thing is peace of mind and taking things slow and being able to be conscious to that, even though that's not really an activity. But when you're like rushing and doing 1,000 things, like it seems like the opposite. So sometimes it's not possible to take less money, but at least put the attention there, that's your priority. Like I could make so much more money. I could really, do a lot of things, but the most important thing for me is like what's happening. I'm feeling what's happening and experiencing what's actually happening. And all of that, requires a lot of mental work and lots of work on the computer. And I do way too much work on the computer as it is. And, every time you're looking at the computer, like the lights are flickering in your eyes, so it's having an effect on you. But yeah, not just that. It's like never having time to just sit or just to have the experience of not knowing what to do. Because I will always take that. Yeah. So that's my response. Maybe you have something to say that back to that, Paval. And maybe you can tell me if I really say Paul or if I say Paval. You maybe can phonetically spell it for me. I'll try to do the names, but I'm rubbish because of the dyslexia. My mind is like a sieve. Oh, that's beautiful, Nick. Thank you. Hi, Gerald. So if you want to call, then call me, and I will take preference to calls. Veslina? That's a beautiful name if that's how you say it. Veslina. Hi, Veslina. It's a nice name. Michael. Hi, Lisa. As a Dutchie, I totally agree with you. We do sound like ducks. I'm so sorry I said that. I think that you're not allowed to say it about other countries. I think maybe I kind of get away with it if I stick to Europeans and like Americans. Like saying it. Yeah. I'm fostering some monarch caterpillars to help boost the population. Love and gratitude to you, Lisa. Oh, beautiful caterpillars. The colours. Ooh. Hi, Adam. Hey, Lisa. Adam from London. It will stick in my brain. Like when I have these images that are associated with names, it sticks. So this is not religion or spirituality or any of those convoluted ideas. Just understanding who we actually are. Thanks as ever, Lisa. Yeah, totally. But it's not an understanding either. So in the West, particularly, we're obsessed with intellect being king, so science being king and understanding intellectually. This is beyond understanding. So what is it that sees understanding? So it's not a philosophy. I know on a lot of my talks, it's called philosophy, but I have to come into a category of a teacher, and that's the closest. Or, like I have to you have to put categories on things. Like you don't get a category of no thing. So it's not a religion, it's not a spirituality, and it's not an idea. It's that which has always been there. As a baby, you didn't need any ideas to be this. You just were it. Like it doesn't need any ideas to be it. You are it. It's that which is watching now. It's that which is experiencing. It's free, it's alive, it's present. Oh God, I love this subject. It's here. It is here. Hi friend, yes, do it for free. If you do it for free, can you ask for donations without having to do paperwork? The 4 weeks theme sounds great. Sign me up. You're Dennis in Kentucky. If you donate, I have to do paperwork, but less paperwork. But still have to do paperwork. But it's less. But I am trying to pass this paperwork on to a friend of mine that helps me with organization. It's just complex when you tend to always have to check it because you, the owners of all the accounts and everything, it's not so easy to pass it off. Hey Jonas, hey Lisa, thank you for the topic. Our pleasure, Jonas. You spelled it good. Paul is just English translation. Thank you for your answers. I'm from the Czech Republic. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I think I really like bastardized some names, so I understand. And it's kind that you send the English translation. Pavel. Wow, I've done all the questions already. Nice. We are done. Maybe I've cut it off by accident. There's no YouTube happening. Oh, it's still going. Yeah, so if you have any questions or you want to call me, then just put call me or just put the question. But for now, it is silence in the airwaves. We have somebody that's brave enough to call. Nice. Jonas. Okay.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Jonas. Thanks for saying call me. It's a brave thing to do.
Yeah, I consider do it or not, but yeah, why not? So,
Yeah. Yeah, you just might need to turn the volume off on YouTube in the background because I'm slightly out of sync with it.
all right, no problem. Yeah, what comes up to your topic today is so whatever happened, I'm not a doer of anything, right?
Yeah. Oops. You know the talk. You know the YouTube video you've got playing in the background. We can hear it, and it's a bit distracting. Like it's
Okay.
echoing a bit. Oh yeah, you've stopped it now. Good.
Better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So that it's not even that. I mean, the thing is in the end, even the idea of doership is simply an idea. So the idea of non-doership is an idea which can be identified with, and the idea of doership is an idea that can be identified with. And the reason that most teachers talk about non-doership is because most people assume that they are the doer, whereas actually both of them are simply concepts that are untrue, and the identification with either of them will lead to suffering. It's not really that there's a doer or not a doer. It's just we have to say there is no doer because the original idea is that you are the doer. Like that you are choosing to live a life, and that you've got to choose a good life in order to be happy, and that in every moment you have free will and choice, and so does the other. And then there's the blame, the guilt, the expectation, the shame, the pride, and all of these are illusory. What actually is happening is there an appearance of someone moving in time, there's an appearance of someone choosing, but when you really examine it, there is no choice. There is no person that is separate from the movement of everything else. There is simply impulses and choices being made by nobody.
Yeah. What I'm get familiar with the idea more or less, and the question is, where is the bridge between this intellectual understanding and the real embodiment, more or less? That
Yeah.
because what I'm seeing, okay, I'm not a doer, and sometimes it brings up agony or helplessness because
Yeah.
I see I'm not in control, and the environments all around say you have to control your life, you have to. And I say, okay, or my inner seeing is, I'm not in control of anything. I'm
Yeah.
not in control of my heartbeat, of
Yeah.
anything. There's absolute no control about anything, and one side is beautiful
Yeah.
because everything is evolving on its own,
Yeah.
and I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm out of business, more or less.
Yeah.
And the other side is, it feels there's this inner heaviness or kind of
Yeah.
heaviness where,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I understand it, but I could not
Yeah.
let go.
Yeah.
There's an inner part, more or less, who try to regain control or to behave as if it have control.
Yeah. And so this is where it begins to like slightly differ with the teachings, because then we go on to the human level. So the reconditioning of the brain of non-doership, I think, is psychologically fairly healthy for the person, and it relaxes a lot in the person. But the reason that you have the other side of feeling like you can't control things and feeling out of control isn't actually to do with the teaching, or it isn't actually to do with non-duality. It's to do with a habit in the solar plexus, so in the solar plexus chakra, which is running. And it's not particularly about the teachings or not teachings, it's just your habit. So it's like the chakras go through phases, and they sometimes can be sparked by the outside world, and sometimes it's just that your chakras open and then close, and it's like the natural rhythm of your body. And when your chakra in the solar plexus is closed, you're going to be having the thoughts in your mind of not being able to control, feeling out of control, feeling powerless, feeling victimized, feeling like life is meaningless, depression, anger, and frustration. Yeah. So that's just naturally what's going to come up when that energy is out of balance. So non-doership is good at reconditioning the mind, because it is a lie that somebody is choosing. And I can see how psychologically it can bring a lot of peace in the human. But when that issue in the solar plexus is coming up, then it's like an energetic problem, and then it's like moving to a different part of the teaching where you begin to release the energy from the solar plexus chakra. First of all, you have to see it's completely impersonal. It's not to do with what you've chosen. It's not to do with what's happening in your life. It's an impersonal momentum that's come from karma, of your habits and conditions and your genetics. And it's something that needs to be released. So you need to most probably do something physical to release it. So massage can help with it. Pranayama breathing can help with it. Holotropic breathing can help with it, because it's all down in the breathing area. Chakra meditations can help with it. So you need to physically do something. Even going out for a run and doing exercise can help with it. But you've got to, first of all, in the mind level, be able to see that the stories that you're telling about being out of control and being powerless are not true. Because what might begin to manifest and you get lost in is feeling powerless to your, say, boss at work, or feeling powerless to the government, or feeling powerless to our current situation, which is happening in the world. And then your mind begins to believe that's true. And you have to be able to break the mind and see that that's illusory, and see that actually what's happening is your solar plexus is out of balance, and then working on the body and working on the energy. So that's my perspective on it.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of body work for years, more or less.
Yeah.
But sometimes it feels like nothing changed, you know?
Yeah.
You're doing your breathing, you're doing Tai Chi, whatever. And sometimes as long as you do it, it feels okay.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and go back to your daily life, more or less, or what you call your daily life, and it feels contracted. And you think, I thought I'd do something, or then I say, okay, I'm not a doer of anything, but there's seemingly been no shift.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a relaxation in between when I get a gap, or when I could make a meditation, or whatever, doing breathing exercises. There's a relaxation happening, but not stay for a daily life. And I thought, okay.
And are you sure that that's not a story that your mind is telling you? Like, can you remember accurately whether it's changed or not? Because that also might be a habit of your mind to say that things haven't changed. I remember when I was with Roger, I was like 26, I think, and I remember we were doing the garden, and I was saying to him, I just got into this story. He said some stuff and he confronted my ego and it was damaged. And I remember like crying and saying, you have no idea what it's like to suffer like I do. You have no idea of all the things that have happened in my life and how hard it is. And he was like, this is simply a story you're telling yourself. In the next moment when that drops away, you won't feel like that. And I was like so angry that he could say that. And then the next day I completely didn't feel like I had a really heavy life and a really weighty life and that I'd suffered all this time. But when I went into suffering, I felt like that. And that thought became like a compressor. It made my suffering worse. And I really believed it until, by grace, Roger pointed that out. And then I really had to laugh at myself when that came up. I mean, like, I'm 27 years old, 26 years old, and I'm crying about how much suffering I've had in my life. Like, I mean, a lot of people, I think, could see that that's quite a, like, I mean, it might be true, but you can see that it's quite a fantasy. Like maybe I should start, you know, like maybe you would think she can talk when she's 50, you know, when she's had 5 kids and she's 50. But it's, are you sure that that's not just a habit of your mind that's coming back saying that? Because we can't really remember the past. You know, we're always influenced by what's happening now. So if you're having injections of feeling powerlessness or feeling trapped, then that feels like a very obvious story that will come up and present itself.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's been lots of change in you. Maybe there's been really profound change, but your mind isn't registering that because your mind has this solar plexus dynamic and it wants to register all the things that aren't changing and all the things that are stuck.
Yeah, someone brings the example from Mercury who tried to regroup, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened in the mind, that it tried to regroup and regain his old position, more or less.
Yeah.
I think I see this dynamic more or less.
Yeah.
And the dynamics are not as strong anymore.
Yeah.
But I get some weeks ago, though, I get so heavy depression. And I thought I'd been over it. I worked on it. I do stuff with it and go to therapy, do my stuff, and do whatever I can. I'm stuck again in the same pattern.
I wouldn't be too hard on yourself at the moment. I think that society is like really going through a difficult phase in its history mentally, and so I think that you know, we're a collective animal, and I think that we pick up on other people's feelings, and I think that our current like situation, and then with the shift that has to happen in humanity, I think a lot of pain is being released. So like if it comes back, like at the moment, I would just be a bit light on yourself. Like I think that there's a lot of suffering that's going on currently, and I think that we you know, we'll pick up on it. So but I mean, I might be wrong. It might be that you have a really rough time of it. I would just question your mind, and I would just question what it says, and just question that dynamic. Like from after Roger pointed that out to me, I could never fully believe that again, you know. So when I would be like in a fit of like emotion and crying my eyes out, like I'd go to say that story and I just could never really like go down like on that boat anymore. I was like, yeah, okay. I can see there's many times where I don't feel like that. When the suffering comes up, I feel like that. But when the suffering's gone, then I feel like, oh, I've had an amazing life.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it helps to come back to non-duality talks and so, and didn't take this so-called story or my story not so serious anymore, because it was always about my life and my suffering, whatever. It's just a joke.
Yeah,
especially
and I would recommend that to people listening to non-duality. Like I'm a big fan of that. That's what I did, and I think it's like if you find someone you resonate with, I think it can like shift energies and shift thoughts, and there can be a sense of something bigger than this little me in that.
Yeah, and I come from a Buddhistic side, and they called about suffering. You could change about suffering, and quite often I'm stuck in the suffering part, and I thought, okay, I just would like to get out of it, and so non-duality brings a little bit more space in that. Because
nice.
Yeah, because in Buddhism it's more suffering and life is painful, and you have to get out of it, and it brings a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it can be very heavy.
Give you a really hard time.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for calling and being brave. Like no one was calling and writing, so appreciate that.
Really appreciate your talk. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice. Have a nice evening, Jenna.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too. Bye.
Hey Derek, here is a very important distinction for you. Eve didn't just eat an apple, she did the duality fruit in the sense because it wasn't just from the tree of knowledge, it was from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the start of separation. Oh my goodness, that's even better, Derek. You're a better Christian. Good on you for pointing that out. And that's really profound, like the original sin, because that is a big part of the separation, is feeling guilty that you lost heaven, and then this good and evil. Yeah. That was such a huge identity, goodness and evilness. And sometimes I think, this is just my theories, but I'm going to be shocked for this, but in the personality structure, when somebody has really, 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 really strong attachment to goodness, they also have a very strong attachment to evilness. And sometimes I think it then plays in their shadow very strongly. So, like if you think of TV shows like The Stepford Wives, you've got like these characters that are presenting goodness, and then underneath there's like this darkness that's happening in all the characters. There's like this bitchiness, like manipulation, like fakeness, lies. Yeah. And there is no good or evil. There is simply love. There is good and evil in terms of controlling our society, but that's subjective. We're so terrified of this because we're terrified of the bad person, and if we really acknowledge this, then maybe the bad person will run around free and hurt us. Yeah, that's really great, Derek. Thank you for bringing that up. I could go in a big, massive monologue about good and evil, but maybe next week what I do is I do a talk about good and evil, because it's so good about this, from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that it's evil to be naked. I mean, it's ridiculous. Oh, it's illegal for a woman to walk around without her top on in the streets. This is ridiculous. Like, how could we live in a society that is that petty? It's boobs. Like, Yeah. Like I am controlled by law to keep my clothes on. That is so ridiculous. Maybe not in Germany, but in all other countries. The Germans are all like, yeah. I have taken to walking in my pajamas recently. I thought I couldn't push it that far and walk in my pajamas, but people actually receive it really well. They kind of like smile at you, but my pajamas are animal pajamas. Or they just ignore it. People really don't care. They couldn't give a toss actually, if you walk in your pajamas. However, if you walk naked, maybe also I walk without my shoes on, with that gets a few more looks, I have to say, especially when it's cold. Yeah. I have this is so funny one time, like, so I'm walking around without my shoes on. I'm not in my pajamas, I have my clothes on, and Khaleesi's got her muzzle on. She has to wear a muzzle because she can fight with some other dogs. And I'm doing my German. I'm practicing German. So I do these tapes when I walk, and you have to say it out loud. And I don't care. I just say it. I just let everyone hear what I'm doing, and they can think I'm mentally insane. But there's one line in my tapes, like they build on sentences, which I have to say embarrasses me. And it is, "You cannot drink the milk of my baby." So you cannot drink the milk of my baby. And in Dutch, let's see if I can do it now. Like I'm suddenly on shows, like in German, it's Du kannst die Milch meinem Baby trinken. And so I'm walking around without my shoes on. Khaleesi's got her muzzle on, and I'm just being a bit of a hippie. And then I'm walking next to this lady that's hearing me say this like quite a few times, because they make you repeat it and they make you say it in you can, and then it says you can drink. So also du kannst nicht, and then also du kannst. And then like after I'd said it a few times, I see this lady like, and she had a baby, and I could see that she suddenly was afraid of me, and then I felt so embarrassed, and then I pulled down the thing and I went, "I'm learning my German." And then I tried to say that in German, and most of it really didn't come out well. I'm learning my German. I'm doing my German tapes. And then there was no savior from that. Like you can't say out loud, like when you're talking to yourself, like you cannot drink the milk of my baby, you not have your shoes on, and your dog being muzzled. And I kept trying to explain it to her, and the more I explained, I could see her like willing her pram like faster and faster away from me. And it always gets me, that line. Like I'll suddenly be amongst people, and then they say it, and I don't think. I just say it out loud in German, because you're kind of in this repetitive mode. Du kannst nicht die Milch meines Baby trinken. Meinem, maybe it's not meines, meinem Baby trinken. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Du kannst nicht Milch van meinem Baby nicht trinken. Yeah. Okay. So we go to, yes, Marnix. Duck calling. Duck and turkey.
Hey there.
Hey!
Let me turn off the audio of YouTube. Yeah, there we are.
Thanks.
Thank you for your talk. I thought it was quite funny when you started to talk about walking in the park, and yeah, it's like making love to people when you look in their eyes.
Hey. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I recognize this. It only happens every once in a while.
Yeah.
Fortunately. But you said something, and I thought that was interesting, so I wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah.
You said so sometimes when that occurs and there's like no boundaries between the two of you.
Yeah.
So does that mean that at other times you do feel the boundaries?
Yeah, I would say that it's sometimes more extreme than other times. So for me, there is a certain amount of identification with the body, and dependent on what I'm doing, there is more or less identification. So, like if it's something complex I'm doing, then there tends to be a bit more identification. If I'm in an argument, there tends to be a bit more identification. And if I'm just blissing out, walking along and I don't have anything complex to do and I'm not maybe speaking to someone, then there'll tend to be less identification, or if I'm meditating. So it depends on the level of interaction. That's my experience of it. And then if I'm like laying in bed or like really not having to move the body in any way, then there might be absolutely no identification. And when that happens, it seems like it's impossible for physicality to work. So it feels like you have to have some form of identification in order to function. That's what it feels like for me. But it might be something that I go past in the future or not. Like, and there is I don't know. That's something that time will tell or not tell.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm curious if because when I experience that the clarity is there, well, I don't experience it, but when the clarity is there, this isn't always accompanied with this no boundaries. In a sense, it is, as in it's clear that anything that is me, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
But I could still see someone, quote unquote, else without this. Maybe it's a bodily sensation, or your heart is just fully open or something.
And it might be sorry, carry on.
Yeah. No. So is it like whether your heart chakra is open or something or not in that moment?
I can't say what it's like for you. I have no idea if we're even talking about the same thing. It seems like we are, but I really can't tell about those types of things. I can maybe get inclinations, but in the end, I don't know. So from my experience, like when there's total disidentification with the body, it's like this white light that's massive, and it's like love, but it's not really like white light that you can see. But I would just describe it as whiteness. And it's totally empty, and there's absolutely no ability to perceive anything about Lisa. So it's like there's no ability to know I'm in the body. It's no ability to know anything about Lisa or her life or what she's done. It's just like this pure stillness that's like undefinable. And then with my everyday experience when I'm living, that is even more in the forefront, or less in the. It's kind of always there, but it sort of is either more there or less there, dependent on what I'm doing. So that's my experience of it. And when it's really there, like maybe the chakras, I don't know if the chakras are all open, like when you're really like, there's very little identification with the body. I don't know if the chakras are necessarily open, because I think I've experienced it when there's been anger before. So I don't think it's about feelings as such, but maybe it's also really blissful, so it does push the chakras open as well. But yeah, that's my. But it could be that we're talking about different things. It could be that, like you have different realizations as you go along the path, and like that's as far as I've come so far. Like that's as far as I know. Like there's some people that speak about having complete disidentification and living, but to me that seems impossible. But I would have thought that what I experience now was impossible before, maybe. So that seems impossible to do. And then you get some teachers that say there has to be some form of identification with the body, otherwise you die. And that kind of feels more true to me. Like if I was just in total expansion, I would die. And that's, so we just don't know. So you take bits of teaching here and you have to really find what's true for you. So with the Buddha, that's it. They said, the Buddha said, pure enlightenment, like pure nirvana is death, physical death. Like while you're in the body, you can only be enlightened. I mean, again, different teachings of Buddhism will say different things, but that was the school of Buddhism that I came from. So nirvana was pure enlightenment, and that came with physical death. But in life, it was enlightenment where you're identified with the body, where there's still identification with the body. And when that totally drops, then it's physical death. And then I've heard other teachers speak about that too, that they keep desire in some form, otherwise they would die and leave the body.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Either way, it's like I can understand what you say, that only time will tell or not.
Yeah, because you really we don't know in the end. We just have to go by, it's not really your experience, but what seemingly happens there. So you can listen to the teachers as like a springboard, and you can listen to or read scriptures. And like my other friend is really into yoga at the moment, and some of the scriptures she presents me with, like she asks me what this means or that means, and it's so different from what I'm saying, but I always kind of find a way to bring it back to the way that I see the world, even when it's like really abstract and feels very different. So you kind of have to, in the end, go with what, like at first when you get into this subject, you maybe have to give it over to the teachings because people are believe they're right and they have lots of ego around it, and then eventually that gets chipped away enough, and then you kind of have to find this new flow of your unique perspective, and then also at the same time admitting that you really don't know. I mean, in the end, I really don't know. I say these things to you, but who knows? And then right here, what do we know? It's just here. It just is.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
It's funny, I have YouTube on, but it's delayed with a few seconds. So
only a few seconds. Sometimes it's longer.
Yeah, I hear you, and then I see like 2 seconds later, I see you move and
smile or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah, with pleasure. Nice to speak with you.
Same. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Nice. Okay, just take one more question and then I am off. We'll take it from Schumann. Hey, Schumann. Hi, Lisa. I get the sense during the meditation period that ultimately I'm not attached to anything. I believe this relates to your quotation of the real and unreal as we are attached to what is unreal. But this is only seen in meditation. In everyday life, attachment naturally comes up for me as well as fears. Thank you very much for your talk. Yeah. But that's beautiful that it comes up in meditation at least. But then your body gets triggered, when you interact. I mean, it's complex interacting. Humans are complex. Like life, we set it up way too complicated for ourselves. Not just individually, but as a society as well. So yeah. But I mean, the fact that there's a sense of that in meditation, I mean, we get into this mentality of like listening to non-duality or listening to this subject, and we get too involved and it must be happening now. Like the fact that that's just seen in meditation is such a gift. Like that's really miraculous. So, yeah. I mean, it's really miraculous, that we are simply talking about it. I mean, what a gift. And 100 years ago, this would have been impossible, 200 years ago. Like a white woman talking about this. I would have been burnt at the stake. My family would have most probably been killed. What a gift to be able to talk about it. Just buzz in the joy of it. Nice. Thank you so much for your question, Schumann, and thank you everybody else for your question and your questions and your trust to be able to share, and your confidence in phoning in. I really appreciate it. Nice. And I will let you know if I decide to, or if I manage to get someone else to do my paperwork and do an online retreat. I would really enjoy to do that, but it's not like someone can write and help me with those. When you do your paperwork, you're kind of the only one that really knows how to do it. It's hard to give it over to someone else. Yeah. But that's not a controlling thing. I literally mean that. Like, if you run a business, you know what I mean. It's hard to, like, you've done this, or you've forgotten to do this, or you didn't check this. Nice. Yes. Okay. Have a beautiful week, and I shall see you next Sunday.